Our topic today is who can be trusted with AI. I am joined by Arpna Aggarwal, an award-winning global leader in AI-enabled cybersecurity, digital governance, and IT audit, who specializes in the design and audit of AI-driven information systems in regulated, data-intensive environments. She's also the inventor of the Cortex framework, helping organizations establish verifiable trust in increasingly complex digital environments. Beyond her global work, Arpna is deeply committed to Africa's digital future, collaborating with Tanzanian and East African technologists, auditors, and policymakers to build trustworthy AI and cybersecurity capabilities in healthcare. She actively mentors women in technology and governance, encouraging them to move from users of AI tools to designers, auditors, and decision makers who shape the deployment of intelligence systems across the continent. Arpna, welcome to the Authority Advantage podcast.
Thank you so much. This was a beautiful introduction. I love that we have the Tanzanian African connection. There is a little bit of warmth that brings together.
Oh, absolutely. Such a joy. And I'm excited to dig into what you're doing, your field, and the different areas that come together, but also your passion for what difference you want to make, starting with Tanzania and East Africa, going across the continent. So let's get into it. My first question to you is from what you've written. You said organizations are investing heavily in AI, yet many leaders underestimate the governance, accountability, and trust challenges that accompany these technologies. What do you know, Arpna, that we should start paying attention to?
That's a very important and key questions. We're all running towards AI with very minimum background on governance and also implementing the policies and procedures in the use of AI. It's just that people want to be ahead of the curve. And so as organizations, until now that they have started implementing performance-based, how the employees are using AI within their day-to-day work. But what's missing is putting the guardrails, putting the boundaries, and that's equivalent to policies and procedures, which is very important when it comes to governance. As an auditor, I have seen this within and heard within the community, industry, organizations that the one key piece that's missing is the guardrails and equivalent to governance. I would say the first item that should be addressed.
This is key. And I'm seeing this right now with the United Nations and IFC. And there are quite a few organizations that should set global standards. No one is policing.
Yes.
Therefore, things are getting out of hand. And of course, business wants to get ahead. Business wants to have the advantage. Business wants to innovate. Yeah, so I can see how without guardrails to show us where we can safely navigate, this is going to get out of hand. So now, with that in mind, with the fact that we may be overlooking or getting ahead of governance and policy, how do institutions establish trust in systems that are becoming increasingly intelligent, autonomous, and complex?
The question we should be figuring out within what fits best locally. So one of the items is the global frameworks, right? That's what helps and sets the tone. If I give you an example, like IT audit, or let's say auditors, we work off like a program, an audit program. I would say that's quote unquote the framework. That's what's going to help, right? And that's what's going to set the tone and the confidence on people to continue their work and accelerate. It talked about evidence-based proof or framework that we should be incorporating within businesses. And that's relatable to what I created, was designed with Cortex, that put security controls in place that at the end should have paper trails, proof, evidence.
This is so valuable because in this race to be relevant, to not be left behind, we're overlooking a lot of things, which in other disciplines, you wouldn't have this in IT, you wouldn't have this in finance, in other, even HR, in other disciplines, we would not, right, move ahead if the data didn't support it. If we couldn't have metrics and track them, if we couldn't then say whether this is really of utility or it's just a gimmick. And my next question then follows on not just from the institution and the role that institutions would have in establishing trust in these systems, but now taking that to the leader, because at the end of the day, the institutions are made of leaders and decision makers. Drawing from your work in AI governance, cybersecurity, healthcare, and digital trust, how do leaders build credibility and trust in this AI era?
See, it's not a responsibility of one person, right? Use the term leader, but I think AI is a responsibility of a collective, in fact, everybody, right? If we're talking about organizations, a lot of organizations doing are having committees, steering committees, and that kind of ties back to how is the trust being built? We have to keep the pillars in mind. We have to keep ethics in mind. We have to keep the biases, the transparency in mind. So I think the best people, right, are the people who design the AI, will be the better people to give you answers, and the leaders to keep them in check. But mostly the responsibility falls on the people who are designing. I do want to add one thing here is that we don't have to go out and obtain, right? You've mentioned about judgment. For example, auditors, we have lawyers, we have HR people. We know our data better. Each department is aware of their own data, their source data. They know what they want to use it for, the AI, and how they're going to use it, and what the ROI will be. The designers of AI will be the individuals and each departments. The overall leaders will be the one who will be shadowing and making sure we're checking all the boxes.
This is so interesting to me, the fact that you've taken it from this lens, that leadership indeed is not about the individual, it's actually the system, the interface between the designers, right, and what the business seeks to achieve. And in between then is this, like you were saying, a committee or the leadership body then that ensures that what we're doing actually will meet, because this is something that I think sometimes we get lost in when we're so excited about an innovation or something that's come up. We forget, wait, what was our business about? By the way, where were we going? Like, what is our core? And this is meant to facilitate and to make sure that it actually does and doesn't do harm. So I find it very interesting that this is how you're defining leadership. And therefore, then, is what you're saying that the credibility and trust that the leadership would establish.
I so agree with the word oversee when it comes to leadership, right? And again, adding to it, the guardrails and the boundaries are so important, right? I love all the words they use, credibility, because if you think about it, how can you trust something what is not producing? What happens is if my output is not validated or is not valuable, you know, you say garbage in, garbage out, right? Then there is no, what's the point? Like, what did you produce? That's a whole ripple effect, right? So coming back to the point is that how can we trust on AI or who's producing AI is equivalent to the value that of the output. There's so much out in the market with AI, so many platforms, so many systems, but you have to be so carefully evaluating them to make sure what we are using, what are we going to onboard, what value will be produced, because that's not only your reputation at stake, it's also the whole organization or whole the group was designing as well. If you don't know where the trail where you started from to where you ended and what the output is, I don't see how we can trust that.
What do you think are the indicators to say, red light, we're not going ahead, or amber, let's get back to the drawing board and get more data, green light, this makes sense? How do they put in the guardrails or the framework to then help them guide their organization and maybe be that ombudsman or on the designers to make sure the organization actually benefits from AI and is not harmed by it?
I love that question. You know why? Because I'm part of like a lot of industry groups. Everyone is giving an AI tool. Everybody is building outside. And if you go on LinkedIn, people are pitching you for, buy this is what's going to support. Guardrails. I think that's the theme of the
Right?
the podcast is that how can organization build the fence? I'll give you one practical example. Very recently, I'm part of an internal audit collective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such a free community that there is a software or a program or AI tool that's being vetted.
Mm-hmm.
And we would talk around the, other leaders within the industry and say, did you implement? What was your experience? Right? Feeding back from that information, when you do demos, right?
Yeah.
You know what to ask, what you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
benchmarked with the industries. Coming back to your question about framework, right? I can speak on healthcare. They have a lot of vetting, compliance, procurement departments. I would say internal audit plays a very important part as well as a core. Finance, obviously. They have a committee and they vet out. I mean, these are like experiences we're talking about. What were the results? So they have these discussions. They do a lot of testing, as you mentioned, or it's actually implemented. Sadly, I have seen some tools that they're not even allowing on demos or testing, like a sandbox. Bring it on board. Trust is very important. If you know that it doesn't fit your environment, then you bring it abroad, right? Not all size fits everything, every country, every organization, every data, right? There won't be a one global framework. There will be the foundation, but you have to customize it according to what your needs are, and then build like a risk assessment, which then comes back to a check in the box and say, hey, how will this serve our purpose? How will our data be protected? I mean, it's all about the data at the end of the day and how the protection is, because every industry, I talk about healthcare because there's a lot of scrutiny, and financial industries also have a lot of scrutiny, regulations, right? So you have to individually build it in your industry, then your organization, and what the key items are for your organization that needs to be a red no that this is not going to be there. So again, there is not one size fits all, right? It's an individual organization aspect, but it's like tools, go and check it out and say, hey, will it fit me? Will it fit my organization? How is it going to add value? Because you can splurge on the money everywhere with all the new things that are coming out. But when you onboard it, are you going to make the best use of it? Use it to the most potential? And does it check all the boxes of like data protection?
So this is really valuable because I guess for every industry or every development, initially it's like the wild, wild west. Everybody's like doing their own thing until it's standardized. And then we have data, we have benchmark. What you're doing with your collective, you're actually building that right now, asking each other experience and using that to say, okay, what looks like the parameters we should be looking at for our industry. So maybe there are pockets of that happening all around the world as we're waiting to have more experience, right? And then to then confidently, as industries, we may have the gap in IFRS and we have ISO to get there with. So it's so valuable what you're sharing, that this is what organizations can do as we're waiting to build this as a global community. So this is valuable. Thank you. I love this question because it touches on visibility of work that's often deemed to be behind the scenes. We love you, auditors, and we love our IT back office, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many disciplines that have thankless jobs, but I want to know because much of cybersecurity audit and AI governance is invisible work. And it stays invisible when things are going well, right? We never know what we're prevented from, so we don't say thank you because it never happened. I would like to find out though, how do you turn this behind the scenes work into visible authority?
You've well put it how it's called an invisible layer, right?
Mm,
It's like, I'm sure you've heard of case studies and constant cyber threats, breaches.
mm,
In fact,
mm,
if I pull up in the last 6 months, right, you'll see so many of them. What happens is that until something doesn't go wrong, it's not acknowledged. That is called after the fact, postmortem. That's how the whole direction of an auditor has changed.
mm.
Reach for IT audit, I'll be very honest. And the reason I do that is we're not only looking at the systems, we're also looking at the governance piece. Also trying to act as advisory roles. Again, I'm saying trying because we can't fully be on their shoes, but we can walk through them and guide them on what controls to be preventive and detective controls to be added at the front before you even reach out to that. That's exactly how the audit works. People don't see the value, but they're the core piece of the puzzle. We're not taking the policing role, good cop, bad cop. We are taking in more of an advisory role, helping them make sure their controls in place. And I think that is a shift. And it's a constant shift curve that's happening. It's more so coming to the surface because of AI, but it was happening.
How do you do that though? How do you make sure that your work is visible?
I love saying this, I interject in people's businesses. So I interject in people's processes within different departments because we don't work with just IT, we work with different groups.
Yeah.
So in fact, I love that what's happening now more so is that they're giving us a seat on the table. And they're building that process. And you've built that trust with them, walk through them, and it's not an overnight process.
Yeah.
It's a continuous relationship that you build with them. Because what's going to happen is they're going to come to you for answers. And that's when you're visible and valued.
I think it was the group CIO for Dangote Industries. And he said, unless you're coming in as a partner and a strategist from the beginning, not like we've come up with this thing and then you're going to put in whatever systems that are required to move us forward, then there's really no point. So this advisory role that you mentioned, right? This interjection role, we need a seat at the table. Otherwise, we're now trying to force things to work with things you build full understanding, right? And thank you for pointing out that we've always had this role, but now with AI, because it's new to everyone, then they're like, okay, so we don't want to mess this up. Please have a conversation with us. So my next question, how are you helping other women, and women in Africa, especially Tanzania particularly, do the same?
You know, Tanzania is where I come from. I've been nourished there. Yeah. I have my culture, all Tanzanian. I have seen so much talent and the hunger to learn and the hunger to be seen and the knowledge, that education. I have so many people in my network, in my inner circle from Tanzania that are so wanting to be visibly seen. And they are working towards. Kudos to them. They are working on it. If you think about it, everybody's talking about investing in Africa. You cannot just invest in Africa without having locals there. They understand the environment, the infrastructure. And that's when I learned that people are running towards it. They have that knowledge. They've gained that knowledge. It's all back to where we all started our podcast from, is that how are they using the knowledge too, right? Where are they using that knowledge? And have they been given that opportunities, right? That's what I want to see happening. And my little bit contribution to my country, I will definitely continue on. but I want to bring and more interact and encourage women to participate in the global platforms, write, publish, right? And also take the lead in the AI initiatives because they are already building it. They just need to come to the surface.
I love that. And I really hear the passion. What we had a conversation prior to our recording today, and you spoke of how don't just be a participant in this AI revolution, be at the forefront of advancing its development. And you said you mentor quite a few women in this respect.
I just feel like there is a cultural barrier, right? Again, I can speak that for Tanzania or African countries overall and some other countries like India. But I also want to give credit who has broken those barriers and has come at the forefront. And those are the women leaders that are leading the way and building the road, a strong road for people behind their back to come and continue the journey and open up. Public speaking is one of them. I mean, not that I've always been able to speak or confidently speak, but what I've done is trial error, ask for opportunities. One door closes on the other one opens, right? But I will continue to keep doing that. And if I see an opportunity for a lady, I would try to fit it in with another global organization that I'm part of, right? And can give her the stage. Why not? We all need to understand that we all have different knowledge, expertise to offer. I'm not the same as you, you're not the same as me, right? And we all come from different backgrounds. Our knowledge, our expertise is shaped in a different way. I personally think should confidently start off at least with publishing, networking and being on the stage, even if it's a 10-person audience or a 5-person audience, at least speak up so we know what you have to offer.
Absolutely. I love that. This is how we happened, right? You and I, that just on LinkedIn, you reached out. I'm like, let's do it. And sometimes people overthink it. Like you and I didn't have to know each other, right? You have something of value to add. And I asked you like, well, this is what I'd be interested in doing. And this is what I'd like to talk about. I love the way you framed it. It's not just opportunity for individuals. I like how you say people have different types of knowledge. When you said even IT, the IT environment in Africa, so all of a sudden people are like, IT is not just IT. Like it's contextualized, right? And that then adds value to the global knowledge and what can stem from that. And so thank you again for the role that you play. You lead the way and you're also pulling many with you. And I want to stay on Africa if I can with my next question. You said AI should be governed not only in Africa, but with Africa. And I wonder, what does it look like to design AI governance with Africa?
People think that they can just go to Africa and get the data and come back. In a realistic, ideally world. No, comes back to the same question that I keep talking about. They should be the ones designing it because they have that knowledge. It's a local community, right? Like, for example, how the healthcare delivery system we can do, the local languages, the government, how the economy works. More than the people present there would have a better knowledge. So as an outsider, I can't just go and take data from them, right? I have to build it, a tool, or design an AI tool by being among them within Africa. And that's when your tool will be more trusted and will be more used. At the end of the day, it's all about business. I'm going there and building something here and then going there and piloting it, or you are trying to hoping that's going to work there. There's a very likely chance that it's not. It's not only about building trust with the AI or the tool, it's also about the trust of the people. I mentioned it was one size fits all. That's not the concept, because you will have to customize it based on their local communities. I mean, we've seen around the world, there are people who have different languages. Very standard example is that I'm Indian by origin, but every time somebody asks me, it's like, where from India are you? I said, I am not from India, dear. Just because I speak the language, I am not from India, right? But I'm from Tanzania, and I want to be Tanzania because I have a choice, and I want to represent my country. If you have to understand the environment, that's exactly what I meant with not only in Africa, but with Africa.
So good. So good. I remember reading, I think, is it the UAE that is developing, that has commissioned OpenAI to create ChatGPT just for their context. I was listening to a professor, I think at Stanford, and she was talking about, okay, what about creating not just large language models? What about small language models that can really be tailored to communities that speak to their context? And of course, as we've learned with technology and innovations that people try to bring from elsewhere, even if it's South-South innovations, they have to be more niche. They have to be more contextualized. I really appreciate what you're saying. And if although business just wants to make money, they will do it right the first time if they do it or getting the data. I love what you said. Just get the data, then go create something. It'll flop.
If you see that there are groups within Tanzania which are very well educated, and it's always where you get the knowledge from, matters, right? And we have great universities in Tanzania, right? That are bringing global knowledge inside to set the foundation. And you take your local knowledge to build that tools, right?
So good.
And that's how the partnership is working, right? But there is a pocket of group of people that are not well educated, right? Or not presented with that kind of education due to circumstances. So what happens is, who will serve better that pocket of people? Obviously, it's local people.
100.
Because I can't have the visibility of that pocket of people. We can borrow the knowledge from the global community, but we will have to bring it back and build our tools that will work in our environments. I think it's so beautiful what's going on, and how everybody, I love the word hunger, is like hunger for knowledge, hunger for adapting with AI at their own pace. I love how we are understanding that as an African. If I had to put myself in their shoes, and I think it is a race overall, but it's not always the first one in the line that wins, but it's that, you remember when growing up, we had the story of the tortoise. I always think about it whenever I speak on this, and I'm like, you have to be very careful. I always imagine that story whenever, because I learned it from there.
My next question to you. Now, the leader's been listening to us and they're curious about AI and cybersecurity, for instance. And I wonder, how can they start to reposition their skills so they become trusted voices in their niches when AI decisions are being made?
So, we know that it's not a shift that can happen overnight. Relationships, committees, involving different parties from different groups, that's where the knowledges are going to be driven from. It's not always about certifications. It's about how you use it in the real case studies in today's world, right? So I want to say, like, maybe participating more into learning about the operations, the business operations, doing more of AI risk assessments, and try to hear or learn how decisions have been taken, because that's what drive how the product is being built, right? And then I can't emphasize how much documentation is required, evidence is required from end to finish, right?
Mhm.
is it should be able to replicate brand trust.
Yeah.
As a auditor in my profession, I'll give you one example is that I speak to different people, not only auditors, but like lawyers. I speak to like healthcare professions because that's my industry. Learn how they're using. What are the risks, right? What are the AI risks? What are the limitations, right? And I think I always say R&D, research and development,
Yep.
is a very important key aspect.
Yeah.
Please do R&D. Because you can't just build off on something that you haven't done a research on. And this is not one sole tool. This is a collective because people who are going to use is going to be from different groups. The customer clientele is big, right?
Yeah.
As I build it in the Taj Mahal wasn't built overnight, right? It required a lot of different people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of figuring out within the organization, which is a good thing. And there is no pressure to quickly reach the goal or the result. But if the foundation, the vetting is all done properly, then the output would be a better product with the proper guardrails.
This is so interesting because you didn't tell us to go get certifications, right? And you didn't go off recommending go this institution or maybe get this certification because at the end of the day that is theoretical and it hasn't been tried. If at the end of the day you want to be a trusted voice among decision makers when it comes to AI, then you have to have skin in the game. Then you have to have seen it being deployed and sat with stakeholders. Then you want to distinguish yourself as an authority. That you're going to have research, you're going to have experienced it and work with stakeholders. So you're telling us, like when you said the Taj Mahal wasn't built in one day, you're telling us no shortcuts, no hacks. Yeah. Respect to the industry and put in the work that it requires to be an authority.
I'm sure sooner or later certifications will be required for the job. I personally, the number one thing I ask for is try to see if you can get a real world experiences on projects, right? And I'm part of one of the organizations. I sit on a board that helps have this program globally that bring in projects so they have a hands-on experience, right? We've all seen internships, how internships turn around. So I think having a real world experience and then trying to figure out what your niche and expertise is.
Yeah.
The key important part. In fact, I told my intern yesterday, I'm not sure if I want to do my master's. I said, it's okay. Nobody's going to beat you up for not doing master's, right? So let me answer my question. Do you know what you want to do the master's in? I said, if you have an answer, then nobody's stopping you. But if you're blessed to have a job and see, man, I love doing this, why not pick what your job requires? There is so many networks, communities being built out that are offering knowledge, experiences, are willing to talk to you. Make use of that.
Nice.
And I think I advise my students, especially which are the college graduates, please network, talk to people. Don't be disheartened when one person is not responding to you. We all get that even today. Everybody gets that. So it's like 1 out of 10 person will respond to you, be willing to train you because you are the youth of the whole new AI and the quantum that's going to come up and how we will need to lead that. Because there's a legacy that everybody is leaving behind.
So good. Thank you so very much, Arpna, for joining us on this episode on Who Can Be Trusted with AI. It's been wonderful having you here. And everybody who's joined us today, whether you're caught up in AI, adoption at work, or you're just curious, Arpna would be an amazing resource. So I'm going to make sure that her LinkedIn profile link is in the description. Until next time, I'm Modesta Mahiga, and this is the Authority Global Podcast. I'm Modesta Mahiga, and this is the Authority Advantage.